Hello, everyone. As far as I see, we are getting active viewers coming in. Lena from RealtimeBoard here. Our speakers will be joining us in the next couple of minutes. In the meantime, you can go to the questions tab and upvote the questions that are already there if you want them answered, or you can submit your own questions, and you're more than welcome to ask questions in the chat. So I can see that Robert is here, and I'm inviting to join me. Yes, hi, Robert. How are you? I think your microphone is muted, so let's unmute you. Okay.
That should be better, yeah?
Yes, absolutely. Now I can hear you. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have a bunch of active users at the moment, and we already have some questions upvoted, and we already have some questions in the chat, so I'm sure we're going to have a great session. So let's wait for Lieuwe to join us, and then we'll do a quick intro and continue to the questions.
Very good.
Like I said, for anyone joining us, you're welcome to upvote the questions in the question tab if you want them answered, and you're more than welcome to submit your questions, and you're more than welcome to use the chat as well. Introduce yourself, ask questions, do whatever you like. So Lieuwe is here as well. I'm inviting him to join us. And we'll be good to go in 5 more minutes.
Okay.
So how did it go for Lieuwe? Hopefully this time it's going to work. Yeah. Hi, Olga. How are you doing?
Hi, Ian.
Yes. Lieuwe is almost here as well. We're waiting for his video.
Yep, here I am.
Hey there. Welcome to our MAA. Lieuwe, I was just telling the guys that are already with us about the chat. They're welcome to use the chat, introduce themselves, ask questions there. And I also posted some questions that were asked beforehand. They're in the questions tab, so everyone can upvote them, and then we'll get them answered. And we're waiting for 4 more minutes, and we'll be good to go.
Okay.
So how are you guys? How was your day? It's Friday. Happy Friday.
Yeah.
It's nice and hot in here in Holland. It's 25 to 30 degrees today, so it was really warm.
Yeah, pretty good weather you're getting.
Yeah,
Very nice.
And we're busy the website and stuff. Things we are trying to get in the air. So, yeah.
And it's actually great because we have some folks here who are joining us from the United States, and for them it's just the middle of the day. For some people it's morning, for some it's dinner time. So we're getting a good mixture of time zones, and hopefully more questions will be coming in. We'll be starting in 3 minutes time, and I'm reminding everyone that you're welcome to use our chat, which you can see on your right, if you want to introduce yourself or ask questions. And you can also go to the questions tab where I posted some questions, and you can upvote them if you want them answered, or you can answer your own questions because it's an MAA, and you can ask Robert and Lieuwe anything you want. So, preferably related to design thinking and Agile.
Lieuwe, I was wondering. No.
So are there really people from all over the world?
Yes, and we have more and more viewers joining us. I'll check the chat to see if anyone asked anything. I can see that Douglas here is saying that he's an enterprise software developer. He's making cool things for SAP customers. That's pretty cool. And he's using mobile and front-end technologies. And for such a job, he uses design thinking, and he's looking for better ways to remotely do it. I guess we are going to start with this question after we do a quick intro of our guests today. Because I'm sure both of you guys can tell us more about design thinking and how it can help you solve various challenges. It's 1 minute to 7 Central European time, and we're almost ready to start. Let's wait for 1 more minute in case someone is just running in.
Sure.
And by the way, guys, something that I wanted to share with you, you probably don't know this yet. Remember, we collaborated on our guide to sprint retrospectives with distributed teams, and you were giving us feedback. Today, InfoQ published their article with an overview of how to communicate better in distributed teams. And this guide that you contributed to was also mentioned. I will post the link after the AMA so that everyone can read it. It's a pretty good weekend read.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, so I guess we're all set and we can start. So it will be a good idea to begin with an introduction of our awesome guests. So over to you guys. Please introduce yourselves and tell us more about what you do and what you can answer our users about. So let's go ahead.
Okay, shall I start, Robert?
Sure.
Okay, my background is more technical. I've been working in IT for now 20 years or something. Started off as a developer, had a career path to being, well, more sort of a team leader, software architecture, stuff like that. And in that period, I discovered well, the Agile way of working, and I really liked it. And around 2011, I guess, I discovered the Lean Startup. So I was really enthusiastic about that because I think it's the next step on Agile. It goes even a couple of steps further. And then around 2013, I was quitting my job because I really wanted to go, yeah, entrepreneurship. I liked it to do really my own thing. Started a company with a couple of guys, just using the Lean Startup as an innovation method. And in that period, I discovered more and more the UX part of IT. So being a real technical guy, of course, it was a bit of a shift. So I discovered a lot of well, new technologies in that period. And after a while, I really liked it more and more. So I really switched from being more like an enterprise backend developer to really front-end focused, customer focused, and almost UX thinking way of developing. So that's where I'm at right now. I think we have a good workflow together, Robert and me. He will introduce himself, but he's more the UX guy and I'm more the technical guy. And yeah, that works well. Really customer focused now. So a real shift from being really technical, back-end oriented to front-end UX way of working. So that's me.
Okay, this is great. So now it's time for Robert to introduce himself and tell more about his background.
Okay, I'm Robert Kerrsing. I started right after my studies my own company, and that was in 1996. And the internet was like, 4 or 5 years going up in the air, and you could make every possible mistake without being whipped for it. So I learned a lot in those days. I was working on small websites, more in the cultural zone, actually. And then I got a big break by being invited to the United States in 1999 to work on a website to fight extreme poverty, which was a project which was funded by KPMG and I think it was Oracle, if I remember well. And they put together a project to create a website around a concert, like Live Aid. And so I was called and they said, can you come over right away? Which was kind of impossible, but I managed with a friend to get there in 3 days. And I worked my ass off for half a year in Los Angeles and San Francisco, getting other projects as well, the rebranding of KPMG consultancy to Metrius, and then back again because the whole bubble bursted in 2000. So when I came back from the States, I had some friends working at Philips Design, and they invited me over because they knew what I was been doing in the States, working in the digital branding actually at that moment. And so very brand building oriented, but always with a digital background in it. So I started doing projects for Philips Design, and they were already thinking about ambient intelligence in those days, and design thinking was part of their process. They already worked with personas and really creating scenarios way ahead of what we know now. And they got me more and more work. That turned into a design agency, which was called Metro, and that turned into a preferred supplier of Philips Design. And we were mostly contributing to their design research projects. So we were designing and building the prototypes, not only digital products, but also working on UIs for actual products. Then I thought I was becoming invincible, so I started a startup next to it, which was not such a good idea. And we were the first in the Netherlands to stream mobile television live from the server. But I thought because of all the airtime that I got that I was on my way to the top, and I kind of let my design company, which is our business, a bit behind. And then in 2008, the crisis started and Philips put back their budgets. They went from 500,000 to 5K, and then in 1 year it was all over for my startup and my design company. So that made me think for the first time in a lot of time. But luckily I've kept my design skills always up to date, especially with the work I've been doing for Philips. So after that, I took a big breath and started on my own again, just doing freelance consultancy jobs in the design field, working on digital products. And that's actually how I met Lieuwe, I think about 1 year ago now, because I was doing a project for a document management system, intelligent document management system. And I think we really hit it off because the way we look at a seamless integration of user experience design and front-end development, and actually all the stuff that should happen before that, before companies start building software. And that has evolved now in closely collaborating with Lieuwe. We're doing projects together now, but we also working on actually starting to evangelize our vision on how a integrated design development process should actually be run from a lean startup agile perspective. So that's where I'm now.
And I guess this is how you're approaching your startup, this new project that you're doing together, right?
Yep, that's right. That's right. And still learning.
Yeah, of course.
That's part of the process anyway. But we're testing that now in a project for the Dutch railroads. And most of those companies which have very much like they have only a few users, but their software is tremendously expensive because it has to be very safe. They are in 2017 only learning what we have been doing for the past 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So it's a really interesting field for us to dive into more complex software structures and actually bring the knowledge that we have from the other side into that. It's a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty amazing when a UX designer and agile specialist come together because this is a great, unique combination where you can literally work miracles. So we have a really interesting message in our chat from Jeff. He's saying we just used a real-time board for our corporate all-in virtual event this week. Our dev team has been using it for a while, but it was a really big hit with everyone in the company. Happy to hear that, Jeff. Thank you. We gave them a few quick tips, and they were said it was the center of some awesome collaboration if our apps were only so easy to learn and use. And Jeff, thank you very much for your feedback, and I hope you have some great questions for Robert and Lieuwe. They will be happy to answer them for you. And back to the question that Douglas asked at the very beginning of our MAA. He's an enterprise software developer, and he's working with SAP. And he's using design thinking and looking for better ways to remotely do it. So do you guys have any tips about making design thinking work in a remote environment?
Do I start?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, of course, we're promoting RealtimeBoard here, so that's a start. But I learned from my own experience that, especially at Philips Designs, because they had co-located teams and distributed teams all over the place, States, Europe, Asia, working together. And they had actually kind of very effective just design processes in place to, for instance, do culture scans and work together on that remotely. I have to say, though, that they always saw the need as well to have personal contact. So a lot of work was done remote because they had their design process really good in place. But part of that was that at some point in the process, a small delegation would fly over to where the main team was to actually speed up the process and really come to a materialization of the product. But that was all before RealtimeBoard, and the reason why I'm so enthusiastic about it, and that's not even a sales talk, is that it's the first time that I can visualize my thinking process, which is firmly rooted in design thinking. I can actually put that on a board and invite people in my brain, and that's what I really love about it, because we didn't have those tools before. It was, you know, creating PowerPoints, emailing it, texting, whatever you had, but it was always in different spots, on different places, in different containers, different silos, and that was hard. And well, even today, Lieuwe and I were working together, and it's just, we create a board, we put some stuff on there, and we'll take it from there. And actually, our clients are really loving that. We even got this railroad companies as far as getting an account. They don't even have a credit card, so because that's against company regulations. But they love it so much because they really see the power of, you know, not everybody being present, but being capable of continuing to contribute every day to the process, which will automatically lead to a better product.
Yeah, but still, the way I hear it is, even though design thinking can work remotely, it's still a good idea to get together from time to time. And it's funny because we had one of our users tweet to us today, and he said, RealtimeBoard is probably the best tool I've ever used to make distributed thing work. Correction, second best. The airplane just beats it. So I think everybody thinks
to combine them, you know.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but it's what the one thing I want to add is it's not just about being remotely. We use it all the time for teams that are physically in the same room the whole day.
Yeah, I forgot about
that. The experience on in Agile, you use a lot of walls and a lot of post-its and draw a lot. But most of the time it gets lost. You start somewhere, you start with energy in the room, and then you have a lot of visual stuff, and then well, some pictures if you were lucky. But now you can continue that process and keep that value. So it's not even about only distributed teams, it's also for teams that are physically together. I compare RealtimeBoard more like the replacement of the office walls, and instead of hanging everything around ourselves, we just put a digital on the board and continue on that basis. So the one thing Jeff mentioned, it's just all in virtual and visual stuff. That's I think the basis, just being more visual instead of documents and text. I even now started to communicate the architecture in a visual way on RealtimeBoard. I don't write any documents anymore. So.
But do you think you can recommend any, like everyone knows IDO for design thinking resources, but is there anything else you can recommend to Douglas he could use for like a good resource for tips on remote design thinking or design thinking for co-located teams? Where do you guys go if you want to have some good self-education, good reading on design thinking?
I'm following a lot of blogs. I mean, maybe it's good that we include that in the stuff that we will send out after.
Yeah, the follow-up email. Maybe you can share a list of resources.
Yeah, I can do that. To me, there's not like one particular source that has all the diamonds in it. I think that part of what we do right now, and I think everybody who's listening in is agreeing to that. Stuff is going so fast, and there are so many.
It's crazy.
It's crazy and it's amazing at the same time. And everybody makes its own decisions in which tooling is being used. But I think it's for the first time in my career that I've always wanted, in my company and Philips, we always wanted to integrate design and technology. And but design was always a bit like the little baby, like, oh yeah, it still needs a color or some typography or whatever. And I think right now, because of the explosion of technology and stuff that's happening on the screens, it is amazing to see that even the most hardcore corporate people who have nothing to do with creativity processing in a company, even in their own company, understand now that there is value in design, which makes it very easy to start using tools like RealtimeBoard and put stuff on there. And they start to understand. Design has shifted from nice, it looks good, to oh man, we're saving money here, or we're making more money here, or this product will crush the competition because they haven't done it right. They have the same functionality, but they haven't done it right. Going back to the question, like, do you know? I know a lot of places where you can find this, but it's not like there's one coherent story at some spot online there that you have to read and then you can, sit back and relax. I will share what I'm reading.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm sure you will distribute it to the people on, I think it's Monday, yeah?
Yeah, we'll definitely do a follow-up email and we'll set a recording as well as some links that you choose to include, because I think it will be pretty useful to show people what they can read and follow, because there's so much going on and sometimes you miss good resources. Yep. So we'll try to put together a not to miss list from Robert. What about you, Lieuwe?
Well, I'm more, like I said, more of the technical side of it. And what I wanted to add to it is that, like Robert said, a lot of companies have a lot of interest in innovation and design thinking. And what we see a lot of happening is that design and UX is still something separate of development. And I think the power of what we do is that we combine those two. The technology has also made a big leap in the last few years. So we can catch up on a lot of design stuff and don't need weeks and months anymore to create it. So you can involve in development really early in the process, and then it really helps in making a better solution in the end if development is really also understanding what is the user, how is the user helped, and what is the core concept of the product. And if you involve the developers in that process, well, they make better decisions and then they really create a better solution in the end. So I think that's a big step also we take in the last 2 years.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm looking at questions that are in the question tab, and everybody who joined us later, you're welcome to go to the questions tab and upvote the questions that you want to get answered, or you can ask your own questions, obviously. So there is this question that at least two people here want you to answer. What is your biggest dream related to work? How is that for you guys? That's a nice question.
Yeah, that's a nice question. Well, my biggest dream is really to create my own startup and really work on a product for longer term. Like we said in the intros, we did a lot of projects for customers and really into professional services. And it's fun that you see a lot of different things come and go. The downside is, of course, is that you're really not working there for a couple of years or something. So you don't go really, really deep into the product and really go into the knowing your customers. Most of the times we are, well, for me, I'm most of the time 6 months to 12 months at the client, and then I leave again and do something else. So my biggest dream is really to get my own idea up and running in a startup, and I have a concept for it, but now I have to find the time for it.
No, you don't have time. You have a company with me as well. You know?
Yeah. Doing both.
Okay, Robert, do you have anything to add? What are you dreaming about when you are thinking about your job perspectives?
Well, after all the startup mistakes and bankruptcies I've gone through, I've learned that I want to shift away from, like Lieuwe says, I think, in other words, is shifting away from providing the services, but actually make them applicable within my own product. So if you talk about dreams, I mean, when I was young, I wanted to be this startup millionaire and everything, and driving around crazy in like at least 5 Range Rovers at the same time, which is completely impossible. So I found out, no, the dream is that I will have a few people around me who completely, well, not completely think the same, but have the same vision of what a good product is. And no matter how big or small that product will be, releasing that to the market and putting all the knowledge that I've collected over those past 20 years into it. And first I wanted to do that alone. And that was before everything went down. And now I've learned that you will have to do this with people who are on the same page. And it's much more fun as well. And one of the most important lessons I learned, besides, you know, working on something that you love, is that if you do it for the money only, that there will be not enough heart into it to conquer the world. And I think money will come always if your product is great. And it's shown already in what we do. It's just that we're an enthusiastic team, and we go somewhere, we make fun, but we also bring a tremendous value to the table. And I want to bring that value to my own table, preferably with that bald guy on the other screen there.
That's one important point you mentioned. If you really starting a product and your own product somewhere, it should really be something you believe in. That's the only way to do it right, I guess. Yeah. It can't be something because you want to have a product. It should be really founded on something you strongly believe in.
True.
And of course, you need a team always.
Yeah.
You can't do it alone. You need different aspects, different insights. And that's why I love the Agile way of working so much, because everybody can contribute without really have strict roles and strict responsibilities. You just do it together and everybody's doing what he's good at. So that's the only way to do it well, I think.
That's exactly right. The way things are going now in the Agile world, multidisciplinarity has become a big thing. And I love that, because I don't believe in, you know, silos of people that one does accounting and the other one. Everybody can contribute to a good product.
Of course, you have your specialty always.
Always. There's always like this 80-20 thing. But I've seen at Philips, for instance, that fashion designers gave tremendous input on digital products. And out of those ideas came wearables, and that started up working together with Nike. And it's just because a fashion designer walked into a room and said, "Hey, why don't we build that into our shirts?" You know. So and I think that's how things should be going. And
The craziest combinations get the best innovation. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. What can I say? Good luck to you guys, and I'm sure that you're going to have your dreams fulfilled because, you know, this MA is called MA with RealtimeBoard power users, and you guys are power users. The way you work is amazing. Your enthusiasm, how much time you dedicate to improving what you're working on, it's amazing. So I'm sure everything's going to work just fine for you.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. There is a question from Jane. It's not a question to you guys, but I'm going to read it and answer it quickly. Jane is asking, does RTB have some features for dev or QE managers to support them manage people working on multiple projects? For example, easy way to see how many points a QE is assigned on one sprint for a project. And Jane, unfortunately, not yet, but we'll look into adding this feature, and I will leave my email at the end of this MAA, and you're welcome to shoot me an email, and I can put you in touch with our product team to see if they're planning to release something in the near future, so you can test it and have your feedback on the features that you need. And on to the next question that got 1 vote, but I think it's still worth asking. What project are you most proud of so far? I think Robert did tell us quite a bit about projects that he worked on, but still, is there this one project that you're most proud of?
It's more than one.
Always.
But if I have to choose.
Yeah, let's try.
All right, this is long ago, but I was mentioning the project I did for this concert thingy founded by KPMG and the United Nations. I left those one out. This minor organization. I did the design for that portal where that concert was also streamed on a real player level, and they should be able to hit 1 million hits a minute, and we're talking 1999 here. So I was working on web pages that had like the written on the explainers, like it shouldn't be more heavy than 24 KB because otherwise everything will go down. And I created especially the homepage for that thing, and the site was officially opened by then President Bill Clinton in the Oval Office, and there is a picture of him clicking open on my design. So after that, it could only go down because I will never get to the point again. And there's one other project at Philips Design that I was working on together with a great team. It was called, what was again? Home Living, and actually it was a project, no, Lifestyle Home. And it was a project where Philips Design, Philips NetLab, Philips Research, and external parties worked together in a team of 50 people, where we made an inventarization of all products that Philips has in the consumer market at those days, and actually think about digital solutions that not could only connect those devices, but could actually create kind of a ecosystem way before Apple came with the whole iTunes thing and stuff. And for me, that was a revelation to actually have the money and the time and the great people around me. I mean, these were people who were working on patents, and I was just, you know, like a nobody. And I was in this team, and it was like, you know, swimming in a great, warm, tropical sea. And the products that came out were amazing. And of course, they didn't do anything with it because of corporate politics, but hey, they paid my bill, and it was great to work on. We actually made the cover flow like that was in iTunes before it was in iTunes. So that was amazing. Great stuff.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. What about you, Lieuwe?
Well, less spectacular than Robert just mentioned. Like I said in the intro, I have a lot of backend stuff. And one of the things, well, I'm kind of proud of is the unique domains I've been part of. So, for example, I did a big project for the National Lottery here in Holland. And it's kind of a big thing here. It's 6 million lots every month. And that's a big transaction. So that's kind of a unique domain that you don't really easily be part of. Another project I did was the .nl domain registration, also as a software architect. And yeah, those are all pretty unique domains to be part of. And it's not like your regular information system. More recently is, of course, the project Robert also mentioned, Wolters Germany last year we did. And that one was kind of, for me, was kind of where everything came together. Like started off with really a concept, just a product owner with a vision and an idea, and we were able to really dive into the concept and create a UX, a visual design for it, and then really quickly start up development with it without the hassle of legacy or any other politics or anything else. Really focus on being, creating really the user experience we wanted to, and later on the team grew with backend and stuff like that to make it a real system. But the beginning period was really nice. So kind of proud of that. It should go live somewhere this summer, I hope.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now there is, this is my favorite question. Let's look into the future. Fast forward 10 years. How do you imagine skills and responsibilities of a UX designer in your case, Robert, and an Agile specialist in your case, Lieuwe? What would they be like in 10 years' time? Will there be Agile specialists and UX designers at all? What is your vision?
Okay. Yeah, of course, the specialities will always be there. And if maybe we don't call it UX anymore or Agile, because IT is very, how you call that? It's finding out new names every few years. But in essence, of course, I think user-centric development will be getting stronger and stronger. And I think business models will come and go more quickly. So I think the Agile way of working and be really customer-centric will be only getting bigger and bigger and faster and faster. It's the only way to really add value and do the right software development, I guess. So maybe a lot of different names for it. But in essence, I think the skills you need will broaden. I think everybody should develop code in the future. It's going to be sort of a basic skill you should learn at school already. All the other stuff you learn, like being creative, being design, thinking, good social skills, all those things together you need to create good software. So yes, the skills will be there, and I think it will be broadened a lot.
I think a lot of skills that we have now or use now or hire now will be obsolete, because a lot of things will be taken over by artificial intelligence. And I agree with what Lieuwe says, is that actually, if I look to the future in general, I think, and that's a positive way of looking at it, there's always a flip coin to that side, but I think that developing technology and using technology will kind of merge, especially if people start learning coding as like a second language or a third language, which will, I think, completely turn things over. There's a great book, it's called The Inevitable. It's written by the founder of Wired, and he's plotting out 12 big technology trends in there. And I think one of the most important things that he says is that the next major shift is not things like blockchain or stuff like that. That's also big, but I think, well, based upon what he says, I started to think that adding intelligence to stupid things like devices or even chairs or whatever it's going to be, that's going to shift a lot. And I think that I'm an optimist, so I think that technology will bring humans again closer to being human, because right now we're Instagramming the whole day and Twittering, but what is it all about? I think if technology takes over things for us, it will give us the freedom to put a little bit more focus on empathy and social things, and then I mean that in the real world and not online. But on the other hand, that might also shift to a complete controlled society. I don't know. I'm not a visionary in that sense. But I think, as Lieuwe says, that kids will start to code earlier, and they will start creating things on ages that we could only dream about. And I think it's important that people learn the skills anyway, because this is what it's going to be. And I would love to see the world in 10 years, but I can't. I think, but to conclude, I think even if you look at the artificial intelligence that even brought into manufacturing stuff, you actually see that if a computer designs something that has to carry something, it looks more like something from nature than when we design it. So I'm slightly hopeful that technology will bring us back to nature, but that's a bit far-fetched, I think. So, but that's my answer.
That's an interesting perspective, actually. Very cool. Thank you. And you mentioned that we're Instagramming all the time, we're Twitter all the time. So I think both of you know how busy everyone seems to be, and there is obviously communication overload, information overload at work. Some people face burnout. Do you guys have any tips how to deal with that? Like,
delete the ads.
That's a cool tip, yeah.
But I can't. For instance, me, I'm a huge sucker for Facebook, and that's not because
I'm not.
it's not because the people showing off their cats and what they eat, but it's about, for me, that's my news stream, because I've using it for many years, and I'm using it as my news stream because I'm following so many companies there. Instagram, I think it's like the superficial thing. Like, it's a non-existent world that's being projected there. Twitter has good things, but on the other hand, if I look what's being distributed to Twitter right now, I'm not a particular big fan of that. I think social media has not even started. Like the real web has not even started, because it's still, I don't know, it's like mirroring the shit we have in the world right now, and it doesn't really lift society up, I think. So I don't know, I don't have an answer, but if you don't want to lose time on that stuff, just delete the app. I mean, that's the best thing. And then, you know,
this is a holistic approach to it.
Very holistic approach. It also saves, you know, if you don't have a big phone, it saves a lot of space. So, you know.
Well, I don't use Facebook.
Maybe you have a better contribution there, Lieuwe.
But on the burnout side of things, Agile has a way of risk in it, because if you really do a focused Agile way of working and have sprints of like 2 weeks, and it goes on, and you're really focused on every 2 weeks delivering that value, you have a risk of getting into a burnout as a team, maybe even. So it's important to just have a break somewhere along the line, because yeah, you can't always have the pressure on. It's kind of one of the risks that is in Agile way of working, I guess.
But I think on that, Lieuwe, is that you know, it's not very. A lot of people, you know, they have like email boxes with 1,500 unread emails in it. They have their stuff piled up, and I think one of the things that we need now in this digital thing is some way of getting yourself to the point where you start organizing it, because otherwise you lose it. Because I can't handle a full email box. It drives me crazy. So I'm working on it like every 10 minutes, because this stuff has to be managed as well. It is being presented as a continuous flow of information that will just pass by. But if you dive into that all the time and you don't organize your thoughts around it, yeah, you might get to a point where you get a complete information overload and you don't know where to start or end anymore. So I was joking about deleting the apps, but I always say, if people are new to that and they're looking for information, I said, well, start exploring, ask people who you think have a lot of knowledge in that particular field, and just look at what they're reading and what they're looking for. And there's nothing wrong with sometimes sitting on the couch and read a good book on paper.
True. Personally, I'm very selective on the things I follow, and like I said, I'm not a big Facebook fan or anything like it. I read Hacker News and I read the news on regular news sites and stuff, and my inbox is always organized. So really selective on the newsletters and all the stuff that's getting into. I really throw a lot of the stuff away. But one of the things we're going to see, I think, is that artificial intelligence is going to help there as well. And like Robert said earlier, those kinds of intelligence is helping us as well, I think, to really be selective on what you are interested in and let the systems help you in selecting those kinds of content. You can't follow everything in IT. I learned that a long time ago. So that's why we are focused now on front end only. I forget all the back end stuff and all the Azure things and the Java world, and I completely ignore it now because I can't handle it everything. I'm much more into entrepreneurship, UX, HTML5, Angular, all those kinds of stuff I follow. But I'm really selective into it.
Which is enough already.
Yeah, you can better be selective and do the things you do very well than try to follow everything. It's impossible in these kinds of days.
Yeah, you could end up being all over the place. That's true.
And then at the end, you know nothing. Very little of a lot of things. That's not the way it should work, I guess.
There's another question that got 3 upvotes from our viewers. Where are UX design and Agile going? What are the trends? I think we did cover it a little bit, like AI and all the new technologies, but do you see any emerging trends that would be big in the next couple of years or so?
I think one of the things is really lacking in Agile is the focus on end user itself. I think the lean startup, for myself, I see the lean startup as really the next big thing on Agile. Agile at the core is more business focused, and it started off somewhere on the backlog and the product owner. But there's a whole world in front of that. And I kind of think that Agile is missing the point there. So the lean startup really is focusing on end user in the sense of validating before you really start creating stuff, and be really conscious about validating stuff. And I think that's an important one. So yeah, you could call it a trend. So shifting from business value to user value, and then the business will follow. If you have good user value, there's always a business model you can find. But you really should.
So Agile is getting more customer centric.
Yeah, user value. Really search for the value for the customer, and then there's always a possibility to make money out of it.
In my field, I think we are heading towards situations where offline becomes important again. And I think that, a lot of people are talking about that the transformation the mobile phone will get. I think that in 5, 6, 7 years we won't have a device anymore that operates like a mobile phone now. I always, when I design a user interface, I always try to put in there as little as possible. But I think there will be UI-less devices in the near future. And they will just do a specific thing, and it will be in your clothes or in your head even, because Elon Musk is working on that. The fact that Google Glass hasn't started up, that won't mean there won't be a set of glasses that will do it right this time. So I think we will have more devices, but they could be actually really stupid and do only a few things, but do that very, very, very well. And I think then you don't need a user interface, because what we're looking now is if we create something, it has to work on mobile and a tablet and a desktop. I don't want that shit anymore, but it's my job. But I want to just walk around and think of solutions, and I foresee that the device will become less important itself, but the functionality that will surround you in an ambient intelligence kind of environment in your house or in your car or even on the street in an augmented reality kind of environment, I think that's where we're heading to. And then most of the skills I possess design-wise will be obsolete by then. So that refers back to your other question. So I have to do it now, Lieuwe. We have to do it now.
You still see what will change maybe. But one of the things you mentioned is that the devices do, you get more devices that do one thing. So it's another trend maybe you could see is that you should look at the whole customer journey and really have a holistic view on the whole solution and not focus on one app or one application or not limit yourself to one device. Really look at the user value you add in the whole journey the customer has over devices.
Totally. Not all touch points are digital.
No, and everything counts for the value you deliver. So if you miss out on a physical touch point, then you could really lose the value.
Yeah, totally true.
Yeah.
Simon writes in our chat, bring tech back to nature. That sounds very inspiring, like the quote.
Good old Simon. We know Simon. So good one.
Simon says. Simon
So guys, there is another question for you, and it's pretty straightforward, and it got 3 upvotes, so I'm getting it in front of you. What do you use RealtimeBoard for?
Well, I think we said a lot about it already. It's really the central point of sharing information for us now. I work in a lot of agile contexts, and of course the Atlassian suite is always there in most of the times. And I really started to hate things like Confluence because it's a black hole of information almost. A lot of text and nobody reads it. And now we put everything on the RealtimeBoard and make it more visual, and then it's much more appealing and useful in a day-to-day basis. So that's really a shift for me.
I use it for a lot of stuff. I won't say I'm designing in it, but actually I am.
Almost.
Yeah. Because, for instance, if we do workshops on, let's say...
maybe you could share that board of dinosaurs and we can...
how do I do that? Yeah.
Share screen button, then it should work. It really gets an impression that when we started at the client at doing a workshop on customer value, and then it ended up in really visualizing the whole customer journey of the client. So
where do I share it? Make it stupid here.
I'm sure you need to have an extension, a Chrome extension installed to be able to share your screen.
I installed it. Let's see.
Yeah.
You share screen button.
It's our first time here, and yeah, I can see a button. It says share screen. It's up top here. If you scroll it up, I can share my screen to show you where it is, if that helps.
Yeah, do that.
Okay. So there we go. You should be able to see my screen now, and here I had a button which said share screen, where here you see invite screen and stop broadcast, which I'm not going to do. So there was this third button.
Oh, I don't have that screen open anymore. Let me see. Well, let me talk first. I'll try to find the button.
Or you can try sharing the board with me, and I can share the screen for you.
Let's do that. Share. Okay.
That's what Jeff is suggesting. Share the RTB.
Jeff is a smart guy. Let me see. Yep. Share. Okay. What's your email address again? Lena at?
You can share it with me on Slack. That message thread that we were exchanging.
Wait, I can just copy the
and add it here in the chat. Yeah.
Wait. Let me try it like this, because everybody should be able to see it then. It's in the chat now.
Yeah, there we go.
So if I open that as well. Are we still here?
Yes.
Yes, we're still here.
So this is a project that Lieuwe and I started on, and it's a Microsoft community, and they spend already a lot of money doing it wrong. So actually what we did is, if you go to the first designs, basically, you can see there's a value proposition canvas, and you can see.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Hopefully everybody should be able to see my screen now.
Yeah, perfect.
And this is the board.
So what we did here is, I'm showing you a board where not everything is on because we're not allowed to share that. But first of all, we use it to do business canvases. And if you go to the
so give it some time to load.
yeah, the yellow dots, there's like a presentation going vertical. Yeah, exactly there. And if you go down to the lower pages, you see that it still has to load because there's a lot of, yeah, if you stop there, I think it's still loading, yeah?
Yeah.
So here I was creating models based upon their business propositions. And once it's fully loaded, you see what the possibilities are. Because Lieuwe and I like to start off before we do anything with some workshops where we look at the value proposition, and then we like to create mental models and actually visualize what the application should do. Because most of the times when architects start talking to other stakeholders, people who invest money in it, and people who have no visual mind, they all start talking about this application like they're on the same page. But once you start developing, it is very obvious they are not on the same page at all. So what we always do is create, it's still loading, huh? Is create some mental models to actually explain what this application is about and what it initially should do. And then that helps to actually have what we call praatplaten. It's talking canvases. So you have a discussion about a visual representation of the functionality of the application that has to be built. And that really helps to get people from all kinds of disciplines in a team on the same page what we're actually talking about. So the infographics are mine, and then Lieuwe is actually doing the same on a information architectural level. And the things you see next to it, maybe we should share this also with the emailing we're doing.
We can make some pictures out of it for the parts we can share. And then,
because the things that you're looking at right now, the colored bars are, we made a mental model about what kind of layers you're touching in this community. We identified that in a few sessions, also with users. And then we started on this flattened mental model, actually, we started plotting the customer journeys. And if it's fully loaded, you will see a lot of lines going back and forward, saying what you're doing at a particular moment in this application. And we did this whole thing actually in a run-through time of 2 weeks. And it actually completely changed their approach to their own application. And I'm talking about a company that has a lot of funding, and they spend already more than 1.5 million on this. And we changed the whole thing around in like 2 to 3 weeks. It's not only because we're so brilliant. No, it's not because we're so brilliant, but it's because RealtimeBoard makes it possible for me to really put my thoughts in visuals really fast, because it has a simple drawing functionality, which is far more than enough to really put a concept on paper and actually start talking about things, having them in front of you and not in an abstract Excel sheet or just in a few lines or just somebody saying like, I'm a saint, I know everything. Because here, also the little post that you see in the top, that's a task analysis. This was the first time they did a task analysis, and it's just an extension on one of the boards that you guys have in there for default. We're just using the default boards and bringing them to a further extent based upon what is needed in the project. So all of a sudden they had, in 2 or 3 weeks, they had a complete overview of all the ramifications of the decisions they made before and they would have to take now. So you guys are very close to a almost design functionality as well. The only thing I still design is from here you go to the UI design, and we do that in Sketch because that's a real design tool, and you don't need that because that's not the purpose of your platform. I have an iPad Pro with a pencil. I can draw while I'm working on it. The possibilities are endless. If you have a little visual skill set at Paint Shop Pro level, you can do basically anything on RealtimeBoard. And that's one of the reasons why I love it so much, because it's all unified on one canvas. I don't need other tools anymore to communicate my thoughts on technology.
Yeah, and I think I already told you, your boards are like literally one of the best things I ever saw in my life, because they're so beautiful and there is so much information on them. They're incredible, really. We actually have another question. So we pretty much answered the question, what you use RealtimeBoard for, and looks like you pretty much use it for...
Sorry, I have one thing to add, because what we do both is create timelines. So we put date stamps on the stuff we put on there. So it's also like a complete retrospective from end to end. People can go backwards and think, oh yeah, we made the decision over there. Oh, so it's logic that we're doing this now. Oh, but no, let's change it. Okay, we go back to the other week and then we go back forward. So it's, for us, it's also a timeline flow. It's amazing.
There was another question about RealtimeBoards somewhere down there. Yeah, it's about expert options. Jeff is asking, you have a lot of expert options. Do you have any best practices for converting RealtimeBoards, frames, etc. to artifacts archived with other project materials? Do you guys ever do that? Do you export your boards? How do you work with them?
I make backups, like, well, right now I'm very busy, so it's not weekly, but I try to make a backup of a board weekly. I use a lot the PDF export possibility. So I create some frames in a complete flow, and I can derive a presentation on a particular subject from that. I do that a lot because I think that's a great feature. It's just to pinpoint some spots on your board and create a presentation out of that. Actually, you can make multiple presentations out of one board, and I really love that because you can shift focus depending on who you need to send it to, and then when you don't need it anymore, you have the PDF as a backup, and you go back to the board and you continue working on it. But the backups I do a lot because I really want to keep stuff and bring it back in and use old boards because I remember I did something and I copy it from back and forth.
Yeah, copy it from one board to the other as a backup. I do that as well, but I don't create a lot of PDFs. I tend to more like using the RealtimeBoard also as a presentation platform. So we have kind of a refinement or something on a product with the Scrum team, then I use the board as well as a presentation tool. Create some frames on the parts I want to show and take it from there. And if I miss out on something, I can use the whole board at the spot. So personally, I don't create a lot of artifacts out of RealtimeBoard. I really trust RealtimeBoard to store my information. And yeah, like you said, we leave clients after a few months or a year or something. And then I kind of like to copy stuff and create my personal boards as a personal reference to keep stuff. But preferably on a RealtimeBoard because it's more flexible than PDFs.
Well, sometimes not everybody is on the board, or they are all on the board, but they are overwhelmed with the amount of information that's on there already because they jump in later. And then I use the PDF tool. But I agree with Lieuwe. Most of the stuff I want to do actually on the board and invite people and direct them to where they should go, which is also possible, of course. But if somebody is not in there, or I want to show the way I work to a new client, I do that export thing quite a lot.
Yeah, you really need to help new users on using the boards, because a lot of times it explodes really fast into a lot of information, and then you kind of help to direct to the right parts of it. That's true.
When you're saying helping new users, what would you like? How would you help them when you were a new user? Were there things that you really lacked?
Sorry, can you repeat last?
Like when you're saying that we should help new users understand how to work with boards and export them, was there like one thing that you really lacked that would have helped you as a new user? Is there anything that you can think of?
Well, what I meant was more like there's a lots of information on the real-time board quickly, and it's not like a technical solution to help them. It's just more like where is what information and how do you read through the boards. So yeah, that's not like a feature on real-time board I'm missing. It's more like we use it extensively. So soon it's overwhelming, and then new users that see it for the first time, you really need to guide it through the information and not through the real-time board as a product.
Well, the best thing that works there is that if they start working with us on a board and we do it together in a room or in a meeting, we show them some of the possibilities and they're solved. Sometimes if you invite someone who just gets to the board and then it's like, yeah, well, what's all the fuss about? Because they have no clue on what they could actually materialize with this functionality. On the other hand, I kind of like the fact that everybody can find its own workflow in this thing, because there are many different disciplines looking up to these boards, and I can't expect a non-designer work like a designer. So actually, I wouldn't really channel that into a coherent workflow. Let them go loose. I mean, there's many creativity tools in your sample section. Let them have a hard time sometimes. It will help them to get in deeper. And I think it's a very easy to use tool. I mean, it's almost simple. I mean, if you click things open, if you have some computer knowledge, what is there not to understand? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, that makes sense. But actually, Jeff has some more feedback. He's saying love the frames, also as images to add to PowerPoint slides. That's a good approach to it. And he agrees with you guys. He says, I think you have some board management enhancements coming up. My board list is getting pretty long. And Jeff, you're right. We will be doing some updates soon, and it will be pretty easy to manage your boards in a more intuitive way than it is right now. So stay tuned for updates. And there's a question from Simon. He asks, how do you help and involve stakeholders in decision-making with the board? Info can be overwhelming indeed.
Well, I think we do that by making the comments on particular things that we need feedback on or that we want to share feedback with. And we do one-on-ones on the board. So when they react to that, they get to that particular area. They don't have to get somewhere else. And we do a little description there, and we say in the message like, could you have a look and think about that? So actually then the boards becomes like a multiple chat room, which I really love, because people can talk about different topics together on different parts of the board. So if you want to, if you want a business stakeholder get involved, you write him a different message, and maybe you don't point him to a visual, but like a PDF you put on there, or an image or some description which is closer to his field. So there are many ways, I think, to engage people in different fields on the board by the messaging and chatting tool that's available. So I would say I would use that a lot. That worked for me as well, because you can respond to that in your own time. But it's far more effective than an email on an email on an email, because whatever that person is going to contribute will be on the board, and I will get an update on that. So there are many possibilities on that, I would say.
Yeah,
and this is actually how we communicate with Lieuwe, because we're chatting on the board using comments, and I wasn't used to it so much because I use Slack and email, but now having worked on boards with you guys, I actually understand that this asynchronous communication works way better because you don't feel overwhelmed and you basically get back to the board when you have the time for it and you're focused, and then you can resolve all the comments. So that works pretty well.
We're educating the real-time board people itself. Cool.
Yay!
The upside is that you really have a chat in the context of the information, so that's the whole thing.
Yep.
And we have a question. Can you make your boards use impact mapping technique? So answering this, I guess we don't have a ready-made template, but I think it is pretty easy to come up with the template yourself, then save it and reuse it. So impact mapping is something you can pretty easily do with RealtimeBoard. And then we did actually touch on this as well, but there is another question. Do you have any tips to share with fellow RealtimeBoard users? Like, are there any other best practices that you feel like sharing, tips and tricks that could help people be more productive, collaborate better?
Well, I think if I go first, I mentioned it already. I like to see RealtimeBoard as a visual timeline of everything I'm doing on a particular project. And that project can even be something private. It doesn't have to be business. I really like that because otherwise your information about stuff you're doing is, like you say yourself, it's divided in Slack, Skype, email, written things, notes, bookmarks, all that stuff you don't actually need anymore unless you really need that particular specific functionality. But I use the timeline a lot, and I'm a bit autistic in that because I really want to have that date stamp on there, because like that I can also show the development in my thinking, the things I'm learning in the project myself. It makes me more honest in a project because people can say like, well, you made a mistake there, and I can say, yeah, I did, but I did this to solve things and so on. So I think the timeline possibility that this platform has in it, although it's not really a function, is something that I love. And you can do it horizontally or vertically, it doesn't matter. But and I really like the fact that size doesn't matter somehow. You put something on there and you can enlarge it and create your own little world depending on the importance of the artifact that you put on there. So timeline and no size would be my ultimate features.
Okay, that's great. And I actually think that using timeline is a great tip because for me, like, I'm a marketing person, and it very often helps because normally you show people the final result and they never know what the iterations were and what the thinking behind was it and what the numbers were, like which figures you looked at. And this helps you a lot to actually retrospectively show them your thinking and all the iterations and communications you had with your team members. That's really cool.
Totally.
What about you, Lieuwe?
Yeah, one of the things I really like is the new Jira plugin as well. So we have now.
So you're already using it?
No, not a lot yet. I saw it and I want to use it as soon as possible. Because now you have kind of the whole round trip on when you start a refinement process early in the beginning of a project. It's very chaotic. It's most of the times physically in a room with a lot of post-its. And then I use the feature on taking a picture, and then the RealtimeBoard really separates each post-it on the RealtimeBoard. And then you do a user story mapping, and you go on and refinement and split stories and stuff like that. And at some point, of course, you create stories in, for example, Jira. And it's kind of nice that you now can use the Jira issue back on the story mapping. And the main part is that you really keep it visual. And other times you start on Jira and creating lists and creating a lot of user stories in Jira itself, and then you lose all the mapping stuff on it. So now combining those two things, I really like.
Totally.
Yeah, we're actually very hopeful about this integration because this is something we use as well, even as a collocated team, because it is much easier to do grooming and discuss user stories when Jira becomes more visual with the stickers when they're all brought on the board and everyone can move them around and look at them. So it's pretty cool. Thank you very much, guys. And we're here together for more than an hour, and you answered 11 questions, but I guess maybe there were even more. I feel like there were more of them. And it's Friday, so it's a good time to round up our MA. It was a pleasure having you guys. Thank you very much for your time and the tips that you shared. And we promise that we'll put together a quick reading list of resources that you use for catching up with the latest trends in design thinking. So we'll do that in a follow-up email. And in the meantime, have a great weekend. Thank you very much to everyone who were with us today. And we're looking forward to hosting more MA sessions. There is one coming up on June the 8th with Leila van Alphensleven. She's from Hanno, and she will tell us more about remote work, remote collaboration, and UX. And you guys are more than welcome to join and listen to Leila ask questions and answer questions. And we're doing another one on June the 22nd with an Agile coach, a guy who's huge on remote retrospectives, remote sprint management and whatnot. His name is Gerard Chiva, and he's our power user. So you're more than welcome to join that session as well on June the 22nd. So thank you very much, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
soon.
Bye.